Next, I'd like to introduce finally our final speaker for this panel, Tim Andrews. He's the Executive Director of Taxpayers Protection Alliance and has over 15 years of experience in political advocacy in both the United States and his native Australia. Tim?
Thank you. I think we heard two excellent presentations previously on the theory behind price controls. Instead, what I want to stress upon is the practical, real-world effects that I have seen personally in my native Australia, the country where I have spent most of my life living. I want to start with an illustration. Early last week, I was following the Australian media, and the Health Minister, Greg Hunt, came out with great news. He made an announcement, was applauded throughout the press. A new drug, Simdenko, for cystic fibrosis, represented a breakthrough. This was a revolutionary drug that kids could finally start attending school. Adults could actually start working and leave the home. People could live a real life. It could add 20 years to somebody's lifespan. And the government finally said, we're approving it, and everybody cheered. We often get such good news stories in the media. In Australia, the health minister makes an announcement, something is approved by the government. What's there not to like? The problem is, for every positive announcement that is seen, for every good news story about a drug, a pharmaceutical in the media, there's the hidden story, the unseen that Wolfgang alluded to. Simdenko, this revolutionary cystic fibrosis drug, has been prescribed and was recommended in Australia from 2 years ago. That's how long it took for the government to go through the process of deciding, yeah, okay, we're actually going to pay for it. 2 years might not seem that long for many people here. What does 2 years matter? For the 1,400 children who had 2 years of their life stolen because a government bureaucrat wouldn't sign off on paying for it, 2 years was a lot. But people are right. 2 years, maybe in the context, isn't that long. Because at least that drug was approved. Drugs constantly get denied subsidies in Australia. In 2013, a new drug, Xofigo, came out in the United States, which benefits people from resistant colon cancer, increases lifespan by 30% when no other drugs would work. This has been prescribed in the United States from 2013. In 2014, the government's expert medical panel said this should be subsidised. The government said no. In November 2017, the government's own expert medical panel said this should be subsidised. The government said no. And bear in mind, there is no private health insurance for pharmaceuticals in Australia. What the government says you can get is all that you can get. In fact, only 41% of new medicines launched in the United States since 2011 are available in Australia. Just think about that. 41% only of medicines over almost 10 years are available. I was reading just a few days ago a petition. This is a Change.org petition by people suffering migraines so debilitating that they cannot leave the house. There was a drug, Amovig, which reduced severity by between 50 and 75%. You read the petition, signed by thousands of suffer, and it says that it offered them, quote, the first ray of hope in their lives. Quote, far too many of us have trialled Amovig for the 3 months we had it offered for free, had fantastic results, and then slid back into the darkness of relentless migraines. They couldn't leave their house. The drug was rejected twice by the government, not because it didn't work, not because it wasn't cost-effective, but the government said it was cost-effective and it worked. But, quote, but because there were too many migrant patients who may take it and the cost to the federal budget was too high and uncertain. This is why, as I said, only 41% of new medicines launched since 2011 are available in Australia. Only 50% of new cancer medicines, 40% of new cardiovascular medicines, 13% of gastrointestinal medicines. Even the available medicines, those that finally get approved, on average take 19 more months to go through the bureaucratic process. And this isn't an FDA-style regulation. This is simply for a government bureaucrat to decide that so that it would be, because under a price-fixing system, that it would be approved. And then, even then, many of the conditions are very, very limited. In fact, it's 60 medicines, by the way, that the government's own advisory panel even said they have to allow, still haven't been listed. And this is what happens when you have bureaucrats setting prices and setting health policy. Not patients and doctors through a competitive market, not through an insurance system, but bureaucrats. Because when bureaucrats run a system, they don't have the patient's interests in mind. When you start setting prices, you take healthcare away from patients and doctors. People suffer and people die. The 19 months on average to wait for a drug, even if it's approved in Australia, means that people die of cancer waiting those 19 months. This is profoundly immoral. This is a policy that people say is good, but it is a policy that leads to suffering, and it is a policy that leads to death. We hear perhaps about how this will reduce innovation, and yes, it will reduce innovation. And this is certainly something to consider. We hear, and it's completely true, as previous people have said, it will lead to less investment and fewer drugs in the future. But not only would price fixing lead to fewer drugs being developed and fewer drugs in the pipeline in the future because there's no incentive to invest, but it will lead to shortages now. It will lead to delays now, and it will lead to patients dying now. Read the heart-wrenching petitions, the letters that people write in my native Australia to governments begging them to allow a drug which the government doesn't allow. And how can you not be moved by that? And this is a system that we will end up having here. In fact, the system here will end up being even worse because, for better or for worse, the innovation in this country, because of the free market, delivers the beneficial pharmaceuticals that the rest of the world benefits from. Now, there are problems from an American's perspective with the rest of the world benefiting from the innovation here. And there are solutions to that through trade agreements and other ways of fixing the free rider program. But doing this will reduce innovation. So the waits that we have in Australia, the 19 months wait, the 40% approval rating, will be even worse here because that's still quasi-subsidised by the free market in the United States that is now under threat. There are fundamental problems with drug pricing here. I don't think anyone can deny that the issue of drug pricing is a good one. But you need to treat the root cause of the issue. When it costs $3 billion in regulatory costs alone to approve a new drug because of the FDA bureaucracy, you know you have a problem. $3 billion just in regulatory costs for an average drug that is approved. That is the fundamental problem. That is the root problem that you need to address. Trying to regulate prices will simply reduce innovation. If you want to and have no positive health outcomes, the evidence of this is overwhelmingly clear. Not just the theoretical arguments, but the practical ones. If you want to reduce pharmaceutical prices, you need to increase innovation. The way to do that is to reduce regulation rather than increase it, because these price-fixing, command-and-control style, central planned economic fixes don't fix anything. They make things worse, and they hurt and kill people in the process.
All right, thank you, Tim.